My name is Laura Gibson Lamar. Thank you for coming back and listening to another Georgia Fintech Academy podcast. Today, we have an exciting conversation. And it's not just because they're Georgia Fintech Academy aligned students or the fact that they are interns for the Georgia Fintech Academy on today's call. These are students that have stellar backgrounds, are extremely excited about the industry, and we thought today it would be a good time to bring them in for a conversation around what excites them about fintech, why are they pursuing careers in fintech, and some near peer guidance for other students that are also navigating their fintech journeys. So really excited to have you all here with me today for the Fintech Talks podcast. We're going to start off with a quick introduction with Allison. Allison, can you just introduce yourself, give us a little bit about your background, even where you're from?
Well, my name is obviously Allison. I go to Kennesaw State University and I'm a junior. I'm a finance and I actually decided to double major in marketing and I'm minoring in fintech. I got into like the fintech industry and like the Georgia Fintech Academy because I actually went to a club event where Miss Laura was a guest speaker. So I got to learn a little bit more about just the world of fintech, the industry. I thought it was perfect as a finance major. It makes sense to also look into fintech and have that as a minor as well, especially since Atlanta's called Transaction Alley. So we're like right in the heart of fintech. So that's just kind of a little bit about my background and how I got into the fintech space and why I was interested in going down this path.
I love that, Allison. I love that you plugged in Transaction Alley because Transaction Alley, it's amazing that not many people know this about us. But just thinking about the volume of transaction processed through here, it makes this kind of area, this space really special.
I'm Ashley Smith. I actually grew up in Jamaica, moved to the US when I was 12. I'm a student at Kennesaw State, and similarly to Allison, I got interested in fintech through a club where I saw them having a tabling event at one of our buildings on campus. And at the time, I was looking to add a minor to my portfolio at Kennesaw, and I just stopped and asked them a couple questions and then went from there.
That's cool. That's really cool. And I too like to say I'm international born. I was born in Italy and came
Wow.
here. Yeah, not many people know that, but my father played professional basketball overseas. So I was born in Italy. I lived in Spain, Holland, and Israel, and then I came to the States.
That's
So
so
yeah,
cool. I was actually born in Germany because my dad was overseas. He was a contractor for the military. So I have a military German birth certificate.
wow. Yeah. So we share foreign birth certificates. I have
Yep.
a foreign birth certificate. Katie, what about you? Not where you were born, but I guess just introduction.
Yeah, sure. So unfortunately, unlike you guys, I was born here in the US. I grew up and I was raised here in Georgia my whole entire life. I am a recent graduate from Georgia State University, majoring in finance as well. And what attracted me to fintech was initially I was going for a fintech certificate while majoring in finance at Georgia State that they were offering, and I had to take a class called Foundations of Fintech. And during that class, I had an awesome professor, and he kind of just opened up a lot of insight on the future of fintech, the current innovations that's going on in banking fintech, and also the future innovations that's going on that could provide a lot of opportunities for students in the future for, different kinds of jobs. So that's what made me go into fintech and learn about the Georgia Fintech Academy.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a great segue into kind of the next topic, kind of going deeper into what you just highlighted, Kenny, around the opportunities in fintech. Allison, Ashley, do you guys have kind of a similar background or story into what actually made you pursue an interest in fintech?
Yeah, I think for me, it was just kind of like I said, like when I went to that first club meeting and got to really understand like the impact of fintech. And I guess just like as a finance major, it made perfect sense. It goes hand in hand just with like the innovation of technology nowadays and how like payments are starting to be online and just how fast like fintech is developing. It just made perfect sense to kind of add that onto my course load, especially because I looked over the program and I would have had to take 3 credits anyways, or 3 classes. So it was really only like taking 2 extra classes for a minor. So I thought I might as well try and see. And then it opens a lot of other doors as well of like opportunities that I can do in the future. So
Good point. Ashley, how about you?
So yeah, I believe it was the same club called Fintech and Payments
Mhm.
that we got interested in. But for me, I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I'm a double major in economics and finance. And so at the time, I wanted to add something technology based to my degree, but I wasn't really interested in having like a computer science minor or anything like that. So my basis was basically writing a paper at the time on the economics of international money transfers. And I ended up contacting a professor that I found out later he was a fintech professor, but he had written and published in the field, and I was using his work as a reference. And just that, and then other research I had done for that paper, and then seeing them tabling at that event kind of made me decide to get into fintech.
Oh, that's so cool. It's funny for me listening to you guys. I fell into fintech later on in my career. I shouldn't say later on, but later after my academic time. So when I was in college, I was focused undergrad in fine arts. And then I went on to pursue my master's in graphic design. And then I couldn't find a job that paid anything. And I was like, I need to make money. Like, I don't want to be a starving artist. And so for me, it was like putting my passion for planning together, project management. I love analytics, and I got into that kind of niche within payments and financial services. And then I went back to school. So you guys are doing it right as far as like putting yourselves out there, exploring, different opportunities, the club, which I love that you guys mentioned, the Coles FinTech and Payments Club, very close to that organization, student organization, as well as Kenny ours at Georgia State with the Georgia State Financial Technology Organization. Having the student organization seems like it would be an amazing community to kind of gather with your peers and kind of gain insights and knowledge and network. We'll go into that later because I know we're going to save some like tips for our audience in regards to, just some ways to upskill and to connect with the industry and to leverage their networks. But let's talk about your journey specifically. So as far as employment, and you guys are obviously interns at the Georgia FinTech Academy, so I know you from that perspective. But any stories in regards to your interactions with the industry? So talking about application processes, internships or full time? What does that look like for you guys?
Yeah, I can go ahead and go first. So during
And it's
my
sounding
freshman year of
oh,
college,
hold on a second. It sounded worse for some reason. I wonder what that is. Actually, can everyone but Kenny go on mute if you press your if you press mic. All right. Allison, can you come off mute? Ashley, can you come off mute? It might be your device, Ashley. Are you on your machine laptop?
Yeah, I'm on a laptop.
I don't hear it right now. Is everybody else off mute?
yes.
Did it go away?
I guess
I think
it
it's
was
not. All right. Well, Kenny, let's pick up where we left off.
Yeah, so in my freshman year of college, during the end of it, COVID happened and I was kind of just at home taking online classes and stuff like that. But a lot of my family members, they also went to college and they told me how important it is to get an internship early on, especially if you are trying to, secure a full time. It'll make it a lot easier showing them that you have work experience. Me, I just utilized kind of a lot of how I found my internship was actually the CAC sent out an email. It was kind of like a newsletter and they put out a whole bunch of opportunities and I always applied to them. And one of them was the airport, Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. That was my first internship. And I just applied and they got back to me and there was like a 2-round interview. Not really a 2-round interview, just a pre-screening and then a 1 in-person interview with 3 different hiring managers. And that was my first ever interview, so I was kind of scared a little bit, but I learned a lot that, when you're in kind of these interviews, you just want to be yourself. And a lot of the questions were very behavioral. And then afterwards, after that internship, the next summer, I kind of got another return offer to come back and work specifically in budget instead of just overall finance. And then here I am as an intern for the Georgia FinTech Academy. And that's kind of my journey right now in internships. And starting in May, I will be with Coke Industries as a tax intern, pipelining into a tax analyst.
Oh, that's pretty exciting stuff. Congratulations on that and graduation, Penny. Allison, actually, you guys have any experiences of your own from the internship or just job search perspective?
Yeah, I think for me, my freshman year, like, didn't really, like, try to apply to anything just because I felt like I didn't really have much to, like, put on my resume. I wasn't in any clubs, didn't have any other, like, relevant work experiences. The only thing I could try and leverage was, like, my classwork. And then same thing kind of sophomore year, I decided to join a sorority because I knew I wanted to be treasurer. Because that's a really good, like, leadership position to have on your resume. So the only thing that I could leverage my sophomore year was that I was the treasurer assistant. And then I got involved in more clubs, like, second semester, sophomore year, like the close Fintech and payments clubs that I could, like, kind of leverage into just how I've been networking, meeting other people, just ways that I'm involved on campus. And then I was looking for internships last semester and I found the Georgia Fintech Academy on Handshake. So I applied, and the interview went clearly very well, and I really thought that this was like a great first step in like my very first internship in my college career. And I think it was really beneficial into leveraging my experience in this internship to getting the internship that I have this upcoming summer with Home Depot. Because at that point with Home Depot, by the time I was interviewing, like early October, I was basically already a shoo-in as treasurer. So just like the sorority experience that I had like in my leadership positions was really helpful. And I feel like a lot of people don't realize like, oh, sorority, you're just paying for friends. But if you're an exec, it's a lot to manage a budget with over 100 sisters paying their bills every month and just like the communication between like other girls in the chapter, but also just like other exec members, like talking to our events director and making sure she's in budget, making sure that the president's in loop with everything that's going on. So a lot of like teamwork, collaboration, and people skills. And I feel like that got me my internship with Home Depot over anything else versus like the technical skills, because even though I didn't have like experience in SQL or Tableau or those like data analysis platforms, they saw the potential in me and like the eagerness I had to learn and how I can work well with people. Clearly, if I'm on the executive board of my sorority, then they know that my chapter like respects me as a person and trusts me, and then I can get along with other people. And also just in this internship, like the communication it takes between us three to get LinkedIn posts out or GroupMe posts out. Just like I feel like the technical or communication skills and like personal skills that I had really like leveraged my interview more. Because like Kenny said, I had a 3-round internship process for Home Depot, and the first and third part were all like behavioral, and the second one was an Excel test, but it was very, very easy. It was like stuff I learned freshman year of college, but for the most part, it was like all behavioral stuff is what they were asking me. So I feel like that's really important to just have like some sort of experience that you can say like, yeah, like this really helped build my personal skills. So
Yeah, we're not going to tell Home Depot to make it more complicated for others. They did not hear that first here. No, but I love that. I mean, there's so many skills that you outlined or you highlighted that are transferable in any role or any function, and they really are just looking for some people who have those core fundamentals, you know, the foundation there to build upon. So I love that you highlighted that. And Kenny, I feel like you kind of said the same thing too in your update, kind of highlighting the internships that you had kind of leading up to graduation and then the job that you secured on the other side. It's a combination of these like technical skills, but then some soft skills, communication, you know, management, project management. Those things are extremely important. Ashley, what about you?
Yeah, so going back to that Coles Fintech and Payments Club at KSU, they had an event where they toured the facility of CDE. And on that tour, I was really interested in what they did and getting to know more about the company. And I think this wasn't on purpose, but I think during that tour, I did kind of try and stand out a little bit at the time. And so they also mentioned that they were looking for an intern while we were on the tour. And almost 2 months later, I decided to email their HR department. And I basically just introduced myself and attached a copy of my resume. And they responded by asking what dates I was available to interview for them. But that's pretty much it. And I think that was really interesting, especially since I didn't have necessarily any of the technical skills that I am trying to develop now. But they have also been very instrumental in helping me develop those skills, especially for data analytics.
I love that. It's not a traditional application process. You took initiative, you saw an opportunity, and some people get a little bit nervous about that, like reaching out directly and or cold to someone saying, "Hey, here's my resume. I really enjoyed this session. Thank you." And if there's opportunities, I love to hear that you use that. And then also thinking about you guys mentioning the Georgia Fintech Academy internship. I don't know if we ever told you there was like 86 or 90 like applications. Like we had so many applications, and to like drill down to you guys some substantial time, but it's highly competitive, right? Like not even just internally. And I was thinking, oh, students want, maybe this, big known brand, you know what I mean? They're not going to apply to our internship. So I think we had that perception, but then once we sent out applications, we had students across the board apply. So I think maybe now we kind of transition into kind of best practices and what you guys have seen and learned in regards to, securing a job opportunity, whether it be internship or a full-time opportunity. So thinking back through the journeys that you've had, and Ashley just highlighted a really great example about, leveraging your network, even no matter how, early or young that relationship is, leveraging it. Are there any other tips that you guys feel like students should consider or things that they should be leveraging in their career pursuit?
I think a good one is definitely take advantage of career fairs. Just
Definitely.
because like really being able to put a name to a face is a big thing, especially when like you have a really good conversation with a recruiter and you can hand them your resume and later they'll see your application come through and think, oh yeah, I remember talking to Kenny and like he was really impressive, like he has great communication skills, or you could just tell like he seems like someone who would be a good fit. That's definitely a great way. As for me, I had a few like interview processes that went pretty far through like the career fair that Kennesaw had with some companies. But for Home Depot, I just somehow got really lucky and I went and applied directly on their careers website. I applied to marketing and finance. Somehow I got denied for finance, but they accepted me for marketing, but which didn't make sense to me because I was like, okay, I'm treasurer. I'm an intern at a fintech company. Like I'm a finance major. This is before I added marketing as like a second major. So I was like really confused. But the role is kind of like marketing and finance, but it's on their e-commerce team. So I was like, well, this is like all three things I want all in one. So it kind of made sense, like the logic behind it, because she was saying like, oh, like this is marketing and it's not like graphics and social media. It's more like marketing and like data analytics and like finances, working with numbers. And so I was like, okay, like that makes sense. And I just got really lucky. The recruiter was great. She kind of gave me like a cheat sheet of every single round pretty much. So I know Home Depot is really good with the recruiters to lean on. And also like some other companies. I had an insurance company named LexisNexis. They had a really good recruiter as well. But I decided to go with Home Depot. So I think it's kind of just luck of the draw. And I don't know if this is necessarily the best process, but other than career fairs, I kind of just rapid fired applied to like everything I saw on LinkedIn and Handshake. And it was kind of just like, if I apply to so many, like there's bound to be somebody that reaches out. But I think the thing that shocked me most is like, I didn't realize how long it would take because Home Depot's hiring process, like recruiting process, start to finish was like 2.5 weeks. But there are some like Delta and IHG hotels I applied in like early August and they reached out in like November wanting to schedule like the first round interview after I'd already accepted a role. And I was like, oh gosh, like I thought I just got ghosted, but they just took forever to respond because they probably have so many applicants.
Yeah.
But I think that's really what worked for me was just trying to put yourself out there with career fairs, but then also taking the time to apply to as many jobs as you can. It might seem tiresome and relentless, but I mean, there's bound to be somebody that's going to respond. So that's how I went about the process. But,
I actually heard someone recently say, like, you should be applying for like 100 jobs a week. I don't
Yeah,
know if that seems absurd because back in my day, I felt like there wasn't as much. I didn't have as many resources as you guys have.
mhm,
Yeah.
You got all these different job boards. You can automate the process. Like I've
Mhm.
seen students developing spreadsheets so they know who they apply
I
to.
did that.
A
Yep.
lot, you
yeah,
start losing track. You apply for the
Mhm.
same opportunity, or the system says you've already applied, and so they're trying to come up with these processes to kind of optimize the schedule and say, I'm going to commit an hour a day to just filling out
Mhm.
applications. You're so right. A little bit is kind of luck. And I think students may have some, self-inflicted pressure, I think, on themselves because it's like discouraging. You mentioned
Yep.
relentlessness, but like it's discouraging to say, oh, I did 10 applications last week. I didn't get a response. And
Mhm.
now you're
yeah,
saying it might be 2 months before you hear
Yeah.
back. So you have to
exactly.
keep it going,
Mhm.
Mhm.
You're nodding at everything I say, so I feel like a lot of that resonates with you. What are
Yeah.
your, tips or thoughts?
So, the reason why, everyone's just mass applying now is because the job market actually is just so tough right now.
Mhm.
Everyone is, in college now. It's not like back then how like, you have an option to just go into like the workforce, like being a blue collar worker or going to college and getting an office job, 9 to 5. Nowadays, everyone wants their children to go to college and everyone has a degree. So it just makes, if you want to kind of just stand out, um other than your degree, having certifications, having, as Allison mentioned, kind of campus involvement with her sorority. So that's another good thing. I went to a career fair with a friend and we went to the Truist booth and I had a lot more, relevant work experience for their analyst program. And my friend had only like one internship, but she was the president of VSA, which is an organization on Georgia State camp. And the recruiter actually told me and her that he specifically, and he encourages, us to tell others that, they don't always look for work experience. They kind of look for campus involvement, especially if you are an active member or, a higher up member that is contributing, because that just goes to show that you are a person that is committed to kind of networking, learning, and being able to socialize with others and work with others. And that's what he liked. That's why her application went forward for an interview and mine
Mhm.
didn't. So that's another good tip is, joining any kind of clubs or organizations on campus and becoming an active member and, participating in things like that. That's a good tip.
Yeah, I
Another
think.
good tip.
Oh, sorry, Kenny. I
No,
was going
you
to
got
say it. On the student organizations, I know we have some students that don't have like a fintech student organization on
it.
campus yet. Hopefully, in the near future, and so we've been trying to like educate students about the other student organizations that are kind of adjacent or aligned.
Yeah.
To your point, it could be a sorority, like Allison mentioned. It could
Mhm.
be other organizations. It could be just a finance organization or a sales organization. There's just so many opportunities. It's like, why not take advantage of those? What was your
Yeah.
other points you were about to say?
And also, as you're mass applying, nowadays the recruiters, they have kind of a system to pretty much whatever they're looking for, specifically keywords on a resume.
Mhm.
If there's no keywords on your resume that they are looking for, pretty much your application would just go down into the drain. I'm not gonna lie. But as Asha mentioned, she reached out to HR. So cold emailing is actually super beneficial to setting yourself aside from others. And it also relates to my with the Georgia Fintech Academy and how I secured an intern with you guys. I actually reached out to the LinkedIn and you guys got back to me, and that's how I got in contact with Lavita. Yeah. Cold
Yep.
emailing is super beneficial, and just connecting with people on LinkedIn as well. Just connecting with them and, sending them a little message and just try and get to know them kind of, and then talk about what their work experience is like. And then, just ask them, hey, can you push my resume in for this position? And, most of the time it actually works. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, we might have to go deeper into that LinkedIn one. I like that a lot. Ashley, what about you? What do you think about when you think of tips and tricks for students navigating their careers?
Yeah, so just building on what Kenny and Allison said, definitely get involved. For the how I got the Georgia Fintech Academy internship was that I got involved with the Coast Fintech and Payments Club, of course, and one of the interns, the president of the club at the time, was also a Georgia Fintech Academy intern. And so when she graduated, she thought that I would be a good fit for the position and recommended me for the position. But to go back to career fairs, as someone who isn't really talkative, like I'm very shy, I don't like to go out and just walk up to strangers a lot. I think it's, even if you don't have like a specific company in mind, or if you don't want to work somewhere specifically, it's always good to just go for practice. Practice your elevator pitch. Just practice talking to recruiters, going up to people. You never know what you'll find, 'cause sometimes they might have like one finance position open, even though it's a healthcare company. So I've run into that a couple times, but just practice. If you're shy, make sure you practice, and make sure you keep up with your connections, especially on LinkedIn, and with even just your classmates, your club presidents, stuff like that.
No, that's a good one. I mean, I think LinkedIn has become the new social media. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting older, but I don't use Facebook personally. I rarely use Instagram. And now I feel like all traffic has been driven to LinkedIn. And I was curious, like, how are you guys interacting or leveraging LinkedIn? You mentioned in each of your overviews, you mentioned somehow using the mechanism to kind of aid from a networking perspective. And I think, Kenny, you were getting tactical thinking about, how you communicate and correspond with people that you connect with on LinkedIn. What are your thoughts on how students can best leverage LinkedIn to help them?
Yeah, so touching on what you said earlier, I think I'm getting old as well because before I never opened up the LinkedIn app. It's just, Instagram and TikTok nowadays. But now every single day I open up like LinkedIn a couple of times a day just to kind of just follow up with, seeing different opportunities being posted, especially with your connections. That's why it's super important to connect with anybody. It's free, so why not just do it? Because a lot of your connections, whatever they like or whatever they repost can pop up on your feed, and you could be open to more opportunities there so that you can apply. So that's one thing. That's just like a free virtual connect. Even if you have never met them in person, you just send out a connection invite, and if they accept it, you can always get in contact with them. So that's one way, or that's what I did and what I do, and that's what I encourage other students to do, pretty much. But LinkedIn is awesome. I kind of use it now as kind of a social media kind of for me. I like seeing what my friends are up to and what's going on with their life, especially at their work. So yeah.
Yep, good points. Anybody else have any thoughts on LinkedIn? I know I often tell students with our FinTech Academy events, I'm like, you guys know, since you guys are basically helping with the social media from a FinTech Academy perspective, it's following the guests, complimenting them on certain aspects of what they spoke about at the event. So you make a connection, following them going forward. And maybe there's other posts, other thought leadership they might share on the platform that you can then interact with and add a comment or repost. All of that kind of continues to perpetuate that engagement, and it builds the relationship. And I'm like, man, we have so many leaders. Like, I would have loved to have this when I was in college. Like, I didn't know many industry people. We might have had someone come in and speak to us, but we didn't have, a social platform outside of like Facebook back in the day to connect with. And typically kept that as a professional versus personal type of platform. But like the fact that we can interact with the industry leaders that we already are setting up students to have exposure to, just based off of the LinkedIn connection is amazing.
I think for me, a big one that I really like to use LinkedIn is if I'm really interested in a role, I'll look up like someone who's in that role currently, or I know was in that role, and I'll ask if they can give some insight, just kind of explain what a day in the life looks like, what they felt like, how they felt about their experience. I did that with Astrid, the past Georgia FinTech intern last year, because kind of like Asha was saying, she was the president of the FinTechs and Payments Club, so I knew she was involved with the organization, and I kind of just wanted her insight on what she thought about the role and like kind of what the day-to-day looked like, and just like giving you that insight that like is really helpful coming from someone who was like actually in the company. And then I also did that with someone who was in the role that I'm going to be interning for at Home Depot. Unfortunately, they didn't reach out until after I already got it. But we're just going to say that that was kind of like, I don't know, like a little like good luck charm is that I just
exactly
anyway, so because I got it. But
yeah, it put it out there in the atmosphere. Like,
yeah, so then it just came back to me like, he was like, I hope you got it. I was like, I did. Thanks. But we can still have a coffee chat if you want, even though I know what I'm going to be doing.
You never know, like when, paths will cross in the future, like, and now you have an internal connect, like that's
yeah. Like, what if he's like my manager one day?
Yeah. It literally turns out to be like that, guys. Because I've been in when back in the day when I was working in Charlotte, North Carolina, I worked for a lot of banks and they were all centrally located in this like downtown, we call it uptown area, literally walkable from each other. Bank of America, Wachovia, but now Wells Fargo and Ally right across the street. And you would just hop from one bank and you would run into people that you met, that I had an internship with. Actually, 5 years later, I'm working on a team that's supporting them as a product kind of vertical. So it was amazing to see how kind of small the world is in reality and how a lot of these networks that you build will come back to you in the future. You just never know. Ashley, what about you? What do you think about LinkedIn and how students could, leverage it? Is there anything else that you feel like we haven't covered that has worked for you or that you're utilizing now?
Yeah, so I kind of treat LinkedIn as an extension of my resume, kind of. And so like Kenny said, you follow someone who likes something and then that's how you find out about an opportunity. I try to kind of curate it to where I'm following people who are in positions that I want to be in the future, and then maybe find a recruiter, maybe reach out sometimes and ask them about their position. But I definitely keep it very professional there.
Yep. No, I do the same thing. When I transitioned into this role from the industry, I was like, now I need to learn about, nonprofits, which I never even interacted with outside of volunteering. So I'm like, I need to follow people that have a different layer of expertise that I don't have. So I'm following them and seeing, what they're doing and what they're following and what they're reading as far as, thought leadership goes. And then the other piece is leveraging your connections. So like I'll do coffee chats, I call them, but I'll just randomly reach out to someone. I'm like, hey, I like that. Or I saw that you attended this event. I'm interested in that. Or I saw you were part of an association that I'm vaguely familiar with. Can we meet for coffee or can we have a quick online, coffee chat virtual session and catch up? And those seem to be successful as well. And I don't know if you guys or any of you have reached out and connected with people who were once strangers via LinkedIn in an effort to build a relationship.
I have reached out, but it wasn't necessarily with LinkedIn. But another field trip that we had with the Coles Fintech and Payments Club was to the Visa head office. And I ended up reaching out to one of the speakers that was there to have a coffee chat. And it went really well, actually.
Oh, that's good.
I got to find out some more about working at Visa.
Yep.
And yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I love that. I mean, you mentioned that a couple of times. And that's one thing we got to add to our list is like leveraging those opportunities when you have them or just kind of maximizing the opportunity. The fact that you got in the door at the company is one thing, but to go the extra mile to say, hey, let me reach out to them, and let me connect with them. Let me share my resume. Let me get a coffee chat, scheduled. That's awesome to hear. What other kind of you guys mentioned earlier, we talked about student organizations as a resource, but what about internal university resources like career services or a CAC kind of department within the university? Do you find students, leverage them as much as they should? And if not, why should they leverage that part of the organization?
Yeah, so I feel like not enough people utilize CAC, to be honest, or in the services that they offer to students for free, especially for resumes. A lot of people tend to kind of just make their resume on their own and they don't know how helpful the career service can help them create their resume and tailor it straight for them. And the resume is pretty much like that's my first impression of you, especially for a recruiter. So it's super important to have that super tailored to you and being very brief but also informative, showing that you have whatever skill set that you have pertaining to that either internship or that career opportunity. And I feel like students don't leverage it enough. I've used it twice during my college and I personally didn't use it enough and I wish I did. But also I like to look at other people. I like stalk on LinkedIn, how when people have their out like different templates and you can just kind of play around and kind of look at, oh, so this is a job position that you want and this is what kind of like what they did to get that position, what they wrote on their resume. And you kind of just look at it and see what kind of differentiates yours and theirs and how they got the position. So that's super beneficial. But yeah, and also looking out for newsletters. A lot of students, I feel like, kind of don't look at their email, especially when it's being sent from their university career center. The newsletter is super important, such as how we send out our newsletter with opportunities. These opportunities are informed to us so that we can put it out in the newsletter because they are actively looking for, students to apply. So you actually have a higher chance of, landing that internship or whatever career opportunity because, obviously they're not going to tell me, or they're not going to tell us to advertise this internship or career opportunity on our newsletter if they're not, actively hiring. So yeah, so utilizing that as well is a super great opportunity for students to kind of land that internship role or career opportunity.
I love that you mentioned that one, Kenny, because I don't know if you guys have heard or seen any news or social kind of postings around this, but there's been a lot of talk around there being fake job postings. So like companies are using them for marketing, brand awareness, socializing kind of the excitement around the growth at the company, but sometimes those roles don't necessarily exist, or the timing, per Allison's comment, sometimes the timeline for them to even recruit and hire is just so long. And to your point, Kenny, I mean, we get a lot of jobs, especially lately with internship time cycles kind of coming to an end for this summer. There's like these last minute, you know what I mean? Like we're posting this in this newsletter because in the next 2 weeks, they want to fill it,
Exactly.
type of thing. So, you're spot on in telling students to like leverage these, and reference these materials that, universities are producing in a timely fashion, especially if you're like in the midst of a hunt in a job search as well. So that's a good one. What about you, Allison? Did you have anything else to add on that one?
I think kind of like what Kenny said, I feel like a lot of students don't really utilize like career centers and things like that, those resources. I think Kennesaw has like a really great career advising center because we have like a headshot photo booth, which I literally just like updated my recent headshot, and it's free for students to use. You just tap your student ID card and you can like take as many as you want. So I got that. They have like mock interviews. So like people will like try and interview you, and you can like make sure you really perfect your elevator pitch, kind of like Asha was saying, like at career fairs. And then they also have like resume workshops, things like that. And even like I think they have sometimes like events where they kind of talk about how you should go about like trying to find internships and applying. So I feel like they really do try to help set us up for success. And I feel like I've seen them be better about trying to like make it aware to other students about the services that they provide. But I think students definitely don't take advantage of it as much as they should.
Yeah. I've actually walked across campus, especially at Georgia State, and students will not even know where to find it. And I'm like, what now? Like it's a free resource for you. Not free, you're paying for it. It's part of your tuition. And not taking advantage of it is just sad. Like I've seen headshots. I'm so glad you mentioned Allison headshots. I've seen some headshots that are like selfies. There's no reason you should have selfies.
This career center is the whole reason we're all here, to get a job. Like
yeah, headshots are definitely important.
The one
because
spot you should know like where it is on campus.
Yeah, headshots are definitely important because that just goes to show like that extra step that you take to professionalize yourself, and like it's huge because that's literally a recruiter's first impression of you. So, yeah.
Ashley, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Allison was saying. At Kennesaw, we also, at least in the Coles College of Business, we have a professionalism course that's required for anyone under the Coles College of Business. And a lot of those activities revolve around like mock interviews, updating your resume on Handshake, creating a Handshake profile in general. And I think that a lot of people will do that just to complete the course and then not kind of go back and double back and use it as the resource that it is.
That's a good point. I mean, to take the class and have, the awareness is one thing, but to actually apply it is another step that people need to pursue. So that makes perfect sense. What do you guys think about kind of just application best practices in general? So I know we've highlighted some of them. You guys mentioned, kind of the identification. I mean, we talked a little bit about the pattern of like frequency of like, applying for jobs. But think about like end to end when you're applying for a position at a specific company. What do you think about, company research? Like, how do you, how familiar are you with the company and what they're doing? Is there any type of research or investigation that you guys do in that regard versus, the actual submitting an application? Are there best practices that students should consider there?
I think, especially for my Home Depot internship, I kind of like to do like a little rundown of the company and kind of just do like a quick little like 10-minute research about the work culture, like fun facts, things that people might not know, because I don't think it's a good idea to apply to any job without not even knowing what the company even is. So a connection that I made was that the founder of Home Depot, his name is Arthur M. Blank, and my sorority donates to Children's Healthcare Atlanta, and they just opened the Arthur M. Blank Hospital, and that's where all of our money goes to. So like that connection, I don't know if that even made a difference, but like just to say that like I know about like the philanthropic like activities that go on behind like Home Depot and how it connects to like my sorority was like really helpful, and it kind of like made the recruiters like, oh wow, this girl like really does her research. And then also a big one that Kenny kind of touched on. I think it's definitely important to like kind of tweak your resume to every specific job, which seems tedious, but like he said, like they most of the time have those keywords that they're looking for in the job description. And if you can some way like to not manipulate, but kind of like work those into your resume, like those keywords, like if they're looking for someone who's analytical, who has great communication, who is like really good at math or whatever like your skill may be that they're specifically looking for, if you can like work that into your resume, like most of these companies probably use AI or some sort of computer to like sift through the resumes. So when they catch those keywords, like that's going to be something that automatically puts you into at least get like a phone screening or a first round interview. So I think those are like my two best tips to try and just do research and like tweak your resume a little bit to fit the job description.
Yeah. Touching on what Allison said, I repeat, do not like apply to something and then you end up getting a phone screen or an interview and you did not research the company. You would want to research the company because first of all, if they know that you researched the company and kind of engaged in that conversation where you're talking about the company and the different values or team work environment, whatever it is that you research, it shows that you're actually interested and that's what they care about. And if you can even connect those values to yourself, that's even better. And you know, some people like me, like I don't want to just go into Google, go to their website. I can just ask ChatGPT or AI to kind of like do research for me and summarize it for me so that I can get a better understanding. So also utilize AI to research a company as well if you want to keep it very short and brief.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I always like pick a value or a couple of values, and I won't directly mention them like, this value applies to me because I try and find ways in the interview to kind of exemplify that I do believe in this. This is something that is important to me. And then especially for like fintech companies, see if they've published something or invented something or disrupted some industry very recently, and see if you could kind of bring that up in the interview. And then also, if you have like any schoolwork or projects or something like that that you think might be relevant to the role, definitely bring that up in the interview as well.
Oh yeah, that last one is really key. And I don't know if we've really addressed that yet, because I was thinking about, how do students, build a resume with very little experience, work experience, little to none. And actually what you were just mentioning was just I think, articulation of what you've done in the classroom can be as equally valuable on your resume as an internship or something more formal. So that's a really good gem to kind of add to that conversation, as well as, being curious and just doing some of that background research. One of the things that I wanted to ask you guys that, just listening to you, Aishaley, was the fact that, there are students who are motivated to work for a company who has a great company culture or who has demonstrated successes in various different ways. There's a perception that this generation is, really eager to work for, a Silicon Valley cutting edge company or a Facebook, aka X, or Microsoft or Google. But I think across the board, in my experience, students are looking for more than that. They're looking for a company where they can have visibility, where they can, be challenged and be supported to grow. What are your thoughts about what students are looking for hiring managers and recruiters that might be listening to this conversation?
Yeah, so me personally, those companies such as Microsoft and all that, JP Morgan, all those companies is awesome. It's something that I look forward to working at someday. But also researching the company, as we mentioned earlier, and talking to the hiring managers during your interview and understanding what the values is, and especially the culture and especially the growth is super important. And I'm going to emphasize on growth. A lot of people actually end up, either leaving their company after, 2 to 3 years because they're not able to grow laterally or even vertically. So growth is super important to elaborate on with the hiring manager or any kind of company that you're researching into, because that's what's most important to me is growth. Because, I like money is a big thing because money kind of relates with time. You don't want to be working like 40 hours a week and you're getting underpaid compared to a different job listing or another career opportunity where you could be getting paid, significantly more. So it also depends on how much you value your time. Also, the culture of the work environment or the team that you're working on, make sure you talk about that and elaborate on that as well and understand, does that align with you? Because different work environments are there. They might be brutal, and I've heard stories of the big four. Their work environment is very fast paced, and there is a lot of workload and a lot of deadlines that you have to meet, which, as a fresh graduate coming out and getting into the workforce and you're being exposed to that, it kind of makes it hard to, stay with that company. That's the reason why although the big four is very prestigious, they do have a very high turnover rate. So yeah.
Yep, that's the point. Anybody else have a thought on that? All right, guys, we have come to the end of our talk, and I think we hit on every topic I can think of. I mean, the fact that you guys kind of summarized, tips for people to apply, to maximize, I think, what they're leveraging at their universities, on campuses, leveraging LinkedIn as a tool and a mechanism for connecting with industry, and engaging on job opportunities. We talked about resume, best practices, tips and tricks, as well as interviews, best practices, tips and tricks. Anything that you guys feel like we did not cover that you want to leave with any students that are listening as they are, thinking about their next steps going forward?
For me, I think during my recruiting process for Home Depot, the biggest thing is just lean on your recruiters. If you have any questions, I literally went into ChatGPT and asked questions to ask her to try and make sure I was prepared for each round. Even though her debriefs after each round were very detailed, she even gave me some examples of questions I might be asked. So I know it might be different company to company, but they are very helpful. They're more than willing to help you answer any questions that you may have. And another big thing that I did is, if you're super curious, I researched on Glassdoor kind of reviews of the interview process for roles. They'll have people that are went through the interview for the exact same role you're interviewing for. This is kind of what the process looked like. These were some of the questions they kind of asked me. That's also a really great resource to use as well, to kind of get an idea of what your process is going to look like if you don't necessarily have a rundown like I did from my recruiter.
That's a good one.
Yeah, so one last thing I'll touch on is deadlines. And a lot of the companies have specific deadlines for internships or even kind of their programs or rotation programs. So the early, the better. If you have a chance to apply early, pretty much they'll look at your resume a lot more early because there's less applicants. So you would have a better chance. So that's the last thing I would touch upon, is always make sure you're keeping up with deadlines and making sure when to apply and the best time to apply.
Yeah, and then I would add that sometimes it's okay just to take an internship for just having it on your resume. But I think you should always aim for something you're at least interested in, and, hopefully something that you're also passionate about. Because, recruiters, especially if you're trying to keep that job at that company, come back and intern every summer and then hopefully get a full-time job there. They'll know if you just come in and you just sit down and you do your work and go home, versus coming in and taking an interest in the business and trying to branch out, see what another department's doing, see where you can help. That definitely makes a big difference.
I think I did want to touch and kind of just piggyback off what Kenny said. I completely forgot deadlines are a big one, because I think for my Home Depot internship, I applied the day that they opened, and my recruitment process was over before the applications even closed. So but that's just for my specific role. Like I said, I mean, for Delta, they reached out to me 2 months later.
Yeah.
So I think definitely the earlier the better. Just kind of have an idea of main companies you really, really want to try and work for, to know their deadlines and try and be one of those first few applicants, like Kenny said, because it's going to be a lot easier if you're in the first 100 versus if you're in the thousands, for them to try and find your application.
Oh, that's good. That is good. Well, thank you guys for meeting with me this evening. This is such a great call. Obviously, I'm excited about the fact that we have you all on board as Georgia FinTech Academy interns, but I'm even more excited to see what the future holds for your careers, and our paths will hopefully cross again there in the future on the other side as well. For those that are listening in, we have some exciting podcasts coming up in the next few weeks with an engineer, a cybersecurity analyst, and some other really cool themes. So look forward for some more content from the Georgia FinTech Academy. Thank you, Kenny, Ashley, and Allison for joining. I think this was a really helpful call for our students, and looking forward to continuing to work with you guys as part of the FinTech Academy work.
Yes, thank you for having me as well, and good luck to the students that are watching.